Go for it.
This measurement could determine the Giants'
It is time for Fourth and Long.
With Bernie.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lock your doors, check under your beds, and whatever you do, don't turn off that podcast app. This is Monsters of the Midway, where we turn your favorite NFL stars into creatures that go bump in the night. And trust me, after this episode, you'll never look at that QB sneak the same way again. I'm Bernie, and if you're wondering why I'm talking about monsters in football, well, have you seen Nick Chubb's quad muscle? That's scarier than any horror movie I've watched this year. Tonight, we're breaking down 6 of the NFL's most supernatural stars. And before you ask, no, I'm not talking about whatever Bill Belichick keeps in that hoodie of his. That's a mystery for another episode. First up, the immortal vampire himself, Tom Brady. Like any good vampire, Brady seems to feed off of doubters to stay eternally young. He's basically Dracula with a quarterback rating. Think about it. He played for 23 seasons, won 7 Super Bowl rings, and somehow got better with age. Regular humans peak at 35, but Brady was still out there at 45 picking apart defenses like they were his next meal. And like any true vampire, he only seemed to grow stronger in the darkness of the primetime games. Now, speaking of supernatural beings, have you seen Devonta Smith? They call him the Slim Reaper for good reason. He's a skeleton. In shoulder pads, he's out there rattling defensive backs' bones. At 170 pounds soaking wet, Smith looks like he just rose from a football graveyard. But try catching him if you can. Like any good skeleton, he's got a knack for slipping through the tiniest holes in coverage. Those bony hands, they're catching everything thrown his way. All right. Now, we all know the classic monsters, right? So there's one that everybody loves. Now, if we're talking football monsters, we've got to mention Derrick Henry. And who's Derrick Henry? He's the Frankenstein's monster of running backs. Dr. Frankenstein himself couldn't have built a more perfect specimen. 6'3", 247 pounds, with the speed of a wide receiver. The way he stiff arms defenders, you think he was actually assembled from parts of the league's greatest players. Those poor defensive backs bouncing off him like lightning bugs. It's truly a horror show. Now, speaking of mad scientists, Mike McDaniel is out there in Miami cooking up offensive schemes that would make Dr. Jekyll blush. This mad scientist of the gridiron took the Dolphins' offense and turned it into his own personal laboratory. The way he combined speeds and precision, mixing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle like volatile chemicals, pure genius. And like any good mad scientist, sometimes, most of the times, his experiments blow up spectacularly. But when they work, pure football magic. Okay. And what's a mad scientist without his most intriguing experiment? Tua, our resident mummy. He has been wrapped, unwrapped, and wrapped again through his career. But like any good mummy, he keeps rising from the sarcophagus despite all his bandages and injury concerns. He's out there throwing darts like ancient Egyptian curses across the field. Now, finally, let's talk about George Kittle, the Wolfman of tight ends. This guy literally transforms when the full moon of game day rises. One moment, he's a fun-loving, smiling presence. The next, he's howling through defensive secondaries, mauling anyone who dares to tackle him. And that blocking, pure animal instinct. The way he celebrates after big plays, that's not the first down signal, folks. That's a howl at the football gods. So there you have it. From Brady's vampire-like longevity to Kittle's full moon transformations. And if you think these comparisons are ridiculous, well, try tackling Derrick Henry in the open field and tell me that's not a horror movie waiting to happen. Now, if you enjoyed this spine-tingling segment, don't be a ghost. Drop a comment below and tell us which NFL player reminds you of a Halloween monster. Personally, I'm still convinced Aaron Rodgers is just 3 kids in a jersey trying to trick-or-treat their way onto the field. Back to you, Mike.
Very good.